Yeah.
Oh, so funny.
Oh dear. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Three Coaches, One Topic. Now, today's topic is a good one. It's all about the power of balance, nurturing your feminine energy in a masculine world. And today I am joined by Kelly and Liz. And you guys know the drill. What we do is we start off and you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're calling in from. So over to you guys.
Go for it, Kelly.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Hi, guys. I'm Kelly Turner. I'm based in Wales, in the UK. I am a accredited life coach, and I'm also a student in humanistic psychotherapy that I'm currently doing my master's in. And and I'm all about authenticity, which is really about the relationship with ourselves and how that facilitates our decision making and how we show up in the world.
Yes, it was very exciting because you shared a little bit just before we came on live, and I was just like, hold that and bring it up when we, when we come on. That would be really good. So thank you very much, Kelly. Liz, over to you, my dear.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Liz Cresci. I live in Vermont in the mountains in the States. I am a coach, life coach accredited and certified, and I work with people through getting unstuck, through acceptance, as we were talking about earlier. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, it's really important. I mean, we had a great brainstorming session a little while ago talking about awareness and acceptance, and there has to be acceptance so you can move forward.
100%.
Yeah, no, so that's a very, very valuable if you want to get unstuck and move forward. So yes, thank you very much for being here, Liz. And my name's Donna Burfield, and I am a joy and purpose coach, which is a parent. I don't do parenting as such. I work with and empower parents so they can get on with their parenting. And it's about creating moments, extraordinary moments, and building strong relationships with themselves, their children, their partners. And I don't just do the coaching either. I do the advocating, and I do the cheerleading and the support, which I love. And I also run Coaches Supporting Coaches here in Dubai, which is trying to bring up the standards of coaching globally, so people coach ethically, lawfully, and professionally, so the clients can feel safe when they are being coached by a professional. So that's something that I love doing as well and get very, very passionate about. Yeah. Anybody that knows me. Right, so that leads us nicely on because that's a very masculine side of me that comes out with passion. Onto masculine and feminine energies. What I would love to hear from both of you first is what is your interpretation of masculine and feminine energies?
That's a great question. I would say for me, masculine is more about the doing, like the drive and the goal setting and the action taking externally. Whereas for me, the feminine energy is much more about being connected with like heart centered and nurturing and more in the being side. And I think that sometimes we flow back and forth between them because we all have them, right? It's not about showing up as, more manly or showing up more, femininely. I just think it's about those two sides of us that we all have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liz, what about you? Not Liz, sorry, Kelly. What about you?
Yeah, very much what Liz echoed. I think we can define it, feminine, masculine, yin or yang, or doing or being, and some might say the right brain and the left brain, and be more left and right brain. But I think the feminine is kind of much more it's kind of emotional based, and the kind of and much like Liz said, the compassion, the nurturing, more receptive. She kind of flows. She's more present. That part, and it's in us all. It's not like gender based. It's all in us, on us all. Where the masculine is more about the getting things done. So the feminine might have the ideas and the creativity, but the masculine part of us all will go, okay, how can I create this? How can I bring this into reality? But I think the most important thing is to really emphasize is that we've all got, it's not always balanced in us all. We've all got like a more dominant side, and it's really understanding where do I sit in this? And another layer to that is we're often conditioned to be completely more in the doing, especially in Western culture, there's slight changes happening, but it is about, what result did you get? And how much have you done? How much have you ticked off your to-do list today? What's your status? What money have you got in the bank? It's all this kind of like this masculine world. So the kind of the feminine path that lays in us all, which is really the intuitive, path, the one that allows ourselves to really connect more deeply and relate to ourselves, relate to others, relate to our children, to our colleagues, to the world, it is kind of more depleted. And this is where we can see in the world is a real imbalance. And that's why I think you can see it, mental health is not really great when in developing worlds, even, the wars that we're seeing, the conflict that we're seeing, the homeless people we're seeing on the street. And I really feel this is a manifestation of this imbalance.
I would agree.
Collectively.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Beautifully said. My definition is definitely more about the masculine side being more about the strength, the assertiveness, the independence, being rational, analytical, whereas the feminine tends to be more, excuse me, as you were both saying, about being more intuitive, empathetic, compassionate, nurturing. But I think what gets stuck for me is the language of how we describe it. This has always, for me, been a bit of a struggle because when we're talking about masculine and feminine energy, we're not talking about gender or anything like that. However, we will use this against somebody. Oh, this is you're being too masculine, or that this is your masculine side coming out. You're being like a bull in a china shop. That's what men do. Women don't do that. So is there a different way that we can actually talk about this without talking about masculine and feminine, where it's going to put barriers up for people?
Personally, if I was to really simplify it, if I was literally just going to go, I think anything that takes us away of harmony, then we need to look, well, where's the imbalance happening? So, for example, if someone really reacts to a kind of situation, there may be a real valid reason in that. But if it's kind of out of proportion and then masculines really come in, I got to protect, I need to sort this out, and it's out of proportion and it's really impacted them, then it's probably much more underneath where the feminine can hold it much more, because there's probably a lot more emotion that's kind of underneath that reaction that needs to be held and processed, because a past element has probably come up in the present that needs holding and needs digesting and processing. So that singular event can be unpicked much more and understood with much more wholeness. So I think, so that's what I would say, is anything that's really taken us away of our own harmony, then allowing us to go, well, what's tipping me off?
That's a really good point. And I think that we do lose the underlying reason in lieu of the outcome. right?
Mm.
So I also, if you're diving into kind of becoming that bull in a china shop, stopping and looking at the reason what's causing that is super important. To your question too, Donna, though, I would say we have to stop lumping everything into one bucket or another and
Yeah.
look at the individual pieces. Because if somebody is, as you say, the bull in the china shop, maybe that the other person is feeling very steamrolled over and is feeling
Mhm.
like you're pushing your agenda on me and you're kind of making chaos. So it's calling it out. Hey, what's going on? It feels like you're really, you know, pushing
Yeah.
this issue with me. Um, can we just take a step back? And I think that also speaks to individuals that we need to stand up for our own boundaries, and we need to stand up for um, what feels good and what works well for us, and not be afraid to say, you know, Donna, like, I, you came at me really strongly about this
Mm.
topic, and while I appreciate your side, like, I just want to let you know it shuts me down when you come at me like that. Can we have a more balanced conversation and perhaps see our way through? Um, I don't think people do that. I think a lot of people, myself included, in a lot of ways, don't like what we consider confrontation. Um, but it doesn't have to be confrontational, and it's okay to speak up for
Yeah.
what works for you.
Yeah, but I think also one of the reasons why I mentioned it, because I heard something the other day which kind of, it was funny because I thought we're doing the show today, and somebody made a comment about another man, and she turned around and said, "Ah, yeah, he's really in touch with his feminine side," and the man that she was with started laughing. Now, I I'm just like, there are so many things wrong with this. What are you trying to say, first of all? It was between two complete strangers, so I overheard this conversation. Um, and I thought, how insulting. The way you're saying it is very insulting. You're criticizing his masculinity. You're putting down women as though they're weak and, subservient. There were so many things that was wrong. Now, what's your comment or feelings towards something like that?
Personally, the way I see it, I think as human beings, we kind of want to kind of put people in boxes because we want to really control and understand. So if I put that person in that box, then I can have certainty because I know who they are.
Yeah.
Rather than, and then in that putting people in boxes, we lose their authenticity because obviously everyone is different. So I think it's that part and how we're conditioned to bring up, like if we all defined masculinity, if we all defined what does being feminine mean, it's going to be so subjective depending on how we have been taught this, how we've been conditioned to be. And through that conditioning, that is through maybe culture, through our own maybe upbringing, or whatever that may be, then we've just literally gone, oh, he's in that box, he's in this box, and trying to make sense of things rather than just be much more kind of open that everyone is different, celebrating the differences and going, oh, wow, that's who he is. That's really amazing, and really celebrating people's differences rather than trying to kind of put people in compartmentalize. I can't get my words out. Like, put people in. That's it. You might be Donna. Speak for me. Yeah, literally do that. And I think the more we lean into uncertainty, I think that's when we can become more free to go, wow, you're really getting curious. And that part's the feminine, being really curious and open to really want to understand another person from all layers rather than kind of assume who they are. And that's how I read it.
Interesting. I agree with you on a lot of levels with that. My initial take was, it's the whole, and I don't know if you guys, because you're in other parts of the world, had such a connection with like the Marlboro Man or
Oh yeah.
the
Oh
pictures
yeah.
of what, like, you know, the cow's back and yeah, everybody loved the Marlboro Man. But he was the face back when cigarettes were okay to be smoking. And he was super masculine, and he, you know, probably never showered, and he had the 5 o'clock shadow all the time, and he rode a horse, and everything was like, you know, um, what Hollywood and the media portrayed as a true masculine person. And I think when people say that, because I've been in conversation too, and um, you know, you're going to run into people, you know, women that have way more masculine tendencies than feminine tendencies, or men that have more, you know, female tendencies. But I don't necessarily think that, while I do believe it's an energy thing, it just might be what they prefer. And to get that curiosity that you were talking about, Kelly, is important, because the Marlboro Man and what the media and film and TV has portrayed, it's all made up. You know, I mean, if you think back to stories of the typical man's man, a lot of them turned out to, you know, to really not be that in their real life, right?
Yeah.
So, it's an ideal that's old, that's been here for centuries, when it was preferred to be a man than a woman in our society, right? And I feel like the world is shifting right now. I mean, we are going through not just the humans having identity crises. I think we're having an identity crisis as humankind in the moment, because we are transitioning and we are evolving. And it's okay to be accepting of your intuition now. And there's classes on learning how to be more in touch with, you know, your intuitive side and your creative side. And no longer are those reserved just for women.
Yeah.
So
No,
I think it's
absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah.
But I think
And
they're
it's
a
funny.
holdover in that conversation. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's quite. I mean, I'll let you into a little secret. I have made the odd comment where I have turned around and said, you know, I have got bigger balls than a lot of men I know, and but I'm a
I would
woman.
agree with that.
So I don't quite know where I fit in the box, and then I was just like, well, I'm quite happy not fitting into a box. You know, so it's about, I want to know, when do you draw or tap into your masculine side? And then let's discuss, when do you, you know, consciously, intentionally tap into your feminine side?
That's an excellent question.
I don't mind answering. I'm going to go answering. I think for me, basically, I think it's just going on what was said, completely relate to what everyone said. But I think even though we've got feminine and masculine in us both, I know when you, and like what you're saying, the size, I've got balls like a guy and I'm a woman. It's really honouring, like, well, yeah, there is a masculine and there's a strength there, and I got a feminine part to me and there's a strength there. And recognizing the different strengths that lay within us as a whole.
Yeah.
And so when you see that, okay, if I access more parts of myself, then I'm accessing more strengths that lay within me, and some are going to be dormant depending on how I live in. So for me personally, the feminine comes from the presence. So that kind of way that we can kind of adapt and be very, very flexible. So that example could be, I have got plans today. This is what I'm going to get done. By the end of the day, this is what I need to do to get to my monthly goal, my 3-monthly goal. This is what I have to do. But then something happens. And then you go, do you know what? I can sense that this now, though I thought was a priority, is no longer a priority. And I have to address this part. or that could look like that be me as a mum, and I can see actually I need to prioritize my child here. This thing I thought was important is not. Like I need to park that and reconfigure what was important. The other part could be even looking after myself. So then I may be concentrating on having to get like a goal done, my daily goal done, and like I could feel myself kind of like, I know I'm exhausted. And then how I tune into my own needs and how I meet my own needs by kind of coming back into that presence, listening to myself, and then deciding, actually, is there anything I need to change to make sure that if I prioritize my own needs in this moment, that actually when I get back to the doing, I'm much more productive. So it's that bit is the kind of how we can switch between the two, but that only comes from presence. And that only comes to when we tune into our body and we're not in the neck up. Yeah. So we have to really tune into kind of our emotions, because obviously intuition comes from a felt base. So we're in our thinking head, we're diluting our ability to kind of really access more information that is beyond our seeing and our hearing, you know, so that is really key. So for me, the feminine part, I start my day every day with meditation. Yeah, I connect with me before I connect with the world. And that like tunes me out. So that for me, that is kind of balancing myself out so that I can center. So I can start my day with much more balance in my feminine and masculine. I'm not getting caught up in my emotions, not getting caught up in everything I need to do, and kind of centering myself so I can draw on the both. So that is how I kind of start my day. And then the masculine part for me then is the boundaries. What do I need to do to protect my own space? And boundaries is something I have to teach myself, you know, really hard to. I'm much more feminine dominant. So boundaries are really important to me. And when you're an empath, especially, boundaries can feel extremely uncomfortable because you've tuned in, like, I know what that person is feeling and what they expect from me. But you have to put, like, you got to honor yourself and go, actually, that's not right for me. Or this is my integrity. I say, no, I can't do that right now. And that can be really, really uncomfortable when you kind of being a much more nurturing and you just want to help everybody and you want to kind of care for everybody and you want to be a mother to everybody. So you have to be really careful you don't fall into a rescuer. Yeah. When you got more of when you're definitely more a feminine edge. So that's what kind of helps with the boundaries is a real part. And for goals wise, if I think too big, with a feminine, you can see much more the bigger picture, but then you can tip into overwhelm. Yeah. So for me to access my masculine, what I tend to do, I have to break things down much smaller. So I don't tip into overwhelm. So then I'll go, okay, this is what I want to do. So if I broke that down really small, then that keeps me much more focused, which is my masculine. It makes it feel realistic. So it keeps me more motivated. And it also gives me enough space with my boundaries to check in with myself and those little micro pauses so I can care for myself in the process. So that's what I do daily. There's other things I do, but on a daily basis, that's what I do.
That's beautiful. And I think it does give you a nice balance. And as you were talking about, starting, because the thought came up for me when you started talking about it, is meditation is a very good way to get in touch with yourself. And I think I find the male and female side, like for me, the female energy is very much about getting in touch with yourself and your own needs, as well as the needs of others. I think the feminine energies allow a lot more, as you said, the broader picture. So you're considering all parts at the same time, where I do believe that the masculine energy is much more laser focused and can get the job done, right? If you think back to the hunter-gatherer times, the women were back at the homestead and they were tending the fields and the kids and cooking and making sure the house was fine and doing all this stuff. And the men were out chasing a deer or whatever animal they were chasing. So You know, and while they had to be aware of their surroundings, they were like, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to stop until I get it done. Um, for me, and I, you know, Donna, I know you can easily relate to this. I think, you know, being a single parent requires that you step into both roles, but it's about, and I think I got lost in the masculine energy of trying to be
Yeah.
what I thought my kids needed and not be able to have somebody to balance me out in that. And so I spent many years stuck, what I would consider stuck in my masculine, where I didn't think about, like, I don't do emotion very well. I'm learning to do emotion now because I'm coming back to that. Um, I also am coming back to thinking about what do I want in this, and spending more time in my heart than in my head. That wasn't only a single parent thing. You know, just circumstances growing up required that for me, that I spend more time in my head. And I think that's one of an easy trait to kind of recognize in somebody. And as a man in the world today, I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say negative connotation, but it's not as easily accepted if a man spends time in their heart. But I
Mhm.
think that's causing a lot of problems for men in general. I mean, there's that whole thing about, oh, real men don't cry, you know, and then you have men that have all these physical ailments and other issues, mental health challenges, because they can't move that emotion through them. Um, and so I'm seeing just in men that I've been around that they're more apt and more accepting when you see it on TV now. There's you know, male characters will actually break down into tears on
Mhm.
screen, and you're like, wow, that wouldn't have happened 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's easy to get stuck in a habitual routine, and then we feel out of sorts if we're always in our head versus that nice balance that Kelly was talking about. So I think it's
Yeah.
worth doing that. And for men, I think it doesn't have to be for anybody. If meditation, if sitting and meditating is not your thing, maybe it's working out. Maybe it's doing something repetitive that just allows you to kind of
Tune out.
be more physical, or just check out of your brain and, you know, into whatever you're doing in the moment.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because we talked about that on Pull Up a Sandbag last month, um, about men showing their emotions and how women can, you know, hold it against them and say, we want you to man up, which I hate that saying. It was banned from my household. It was never allowed to be said to my twin boys. But yeah, no, but also I think I want to pick up what you said about being a single parent, but also it for me it started before that. Within my 16-year marriage, I didn't ever feel emotionally safe. I didn't feel that my ex would be able to protect me and well, he didn't. We got broken in and there was things that happened, and I'm the one who's outside looking for the guy that broke in with a baseball bat. My ex-husband didn't want to go out.
The Doninator.
You break into my children's room. How dare you? So yeah, so I think I tap in personally a lot to my masculine side out of survival, out of protection. And like when you were talking, Kelly, you were just bringing up so much for me. And I'm thinking, wow, I really do tap into my feminine side a lot throughout the day. And just before we went live, I said to you, I feel like I'm in my masculine side the whole time right now. But yeah, so that's good. I know when I'm aware that I am in my feminine side is if I feel safe and secure, or I'm with my children, or I'm playing with dogs. that's when you see soft marshmallow Donna come out. And I think that's why I love joy and purpose coaching so much, because it is about parents and empowering them. And that's great. But coaches supporting coaches with what's been happening and what's going through, and trying to build ethics and professionalism, and some of the things I've seen and heard, it has brought out the masculine side a lot. So yeah, that can be quite difficult.
I think if I can add to that, I think this is where, you know, different phases of our life can bring certain aspects of us out more, because it's called upon. And this is where, you know, we have to do what we have to do depending on, you know, where we are in this moment of time. With Liz has mentioned about acceptance, and then aligning, you know, working to our values that might be needing more of our masculine or more of our feminine. But then I think what is really important, and I know everyone's lives are different, is in being able to reflect and really reflect on being honest with ourselves. This is what my job is really taking out of me right now. What do I need in my spare time, or how can I cultivate some space so that I can bring back more of that kind of, maybe I need to be more spontaneous. I need to do just something without any goals because I just love doing it. I just need to just sit here in silence and just be with myself. But, you know, it can look different. I need to go for a walk in nature, you know. So it's really allowing ourselves that space to go, okay, this is what life is demanding of me, but how can I meet my own needs? That's been taken from what is my job is taken from me right now. And this is where we can then build more resilience and well-being, and look after all aspects of physical and mental, emotional, or spiritual, you know, all these different things that is needed for good health, you know. So
I have to say, Kelly, on the back of that though, when you are going through a divorce and it's messy, and you're going to get kicked out of the country, and you're getting money problems, and you've got your children to worry about, and jobs and visas and all this lot, tapping into your feminine side to take space and not to have to fit is a luxury that you cannot afford, because you have to be in that mode. And it's a survival mode. And then when you're in survival mode, it's very hard to think and plan for the future. You have to deal with what's here right now to get through it. I don't know about you, Liz, if you felt the same way. It was kind of like, I can look after myself later. I can take time out. I can go for that walk on the beach. Right now, I can't. If I let my guard down, I'm just going to collapse.
I love what both of you said, because the short answer is I totally get that, Donna. But as you were talking, Kelly, what popped up for me was, we, at least in my experience and a lot of people that I have spoken to, we do messy masculine and messy feminine. And when I say that, it's like a lot of women that I know won't step fully into a masculine trait like goal setting and things like that, especially for themselves, without a lot of difficulty, because we constantly are considering everything and everyone else. And it's very hard for us to be like, no, this is what I want, and I want it because I want it. I don't need to justify it. I can just go for it. And a lot of men tend to do that, right? That's why I believe that, you know, if we want to measure it on success on accomplishment, a lot of men will accomplish what they set out to, and women may take longer, if they even actually get there. And then they're like, oh, but it was just me. It's okay. Because they don't allow themselves to go fully into the feminine for a period of time and fully into the masculine then. And years ago, when I was going through my own divorce and all of that, I definitely had to step in to my masculine all the time and protect and move forward and figure out how was I going to survive with my children. But I think I would have been way more effective if I had allowed myself even a moment or two during the day to ask myself, what do I need? How can I, and step into a bit more of my feminine, not hours and hours, but just enough to ask myself the question and kind of give myself some self-compassion, because then I think I could have been more focused and more on point instead of running around like a chicken with my head cut off, at any given time. And I think it would have been a better balance, but I wasn't even aware at the time. So,
But I'm sure if somebody from the outside was looking in, they could have seen times that you had tapped into your feminine side. And this is what I'm saying. That's why it was valuable. What you said earlier, Kelly, that reflected in my perception is that I'm being way too masculine at the moment. But when you were breaking it down, it was just like, well, wow, I actually do those things. And again, it comes back to about that safety. The couple of 4 or 5 years after my divorce, I met somebody, and so I was about 46, and it was the first time in my life I have ever felt safe with a man, ever. And all of a sudden, I'm wearing skirts, I'm wearing dresses, I'm putting a bit of makeup on, I'm wearing high heels, even though I looked like a pregnant duck, but I did wear high heels. And there was a softer side to me that I had never met, a sensual side that I didn't even know was there. So whilst that ended up being a bad relationship, at that point, I saw a side of me that I never, ever dreamt of. And now I'm excited about the future of when she will come back.
Yeah. And I think you said a key thing there. I think it's Mark Howard. He speaks about, obviously everyone's got different needs, but there's like the essential, the fundamental needs that you'll do anything for. And they would say we need safety, we need love, and we need boundaries. And for me, those three core needs are kind of intertwined with the feminine and the masculine. And that kind of safety, we like a plant can only grow if it's kind of held in its roots are held in the soil, and they only can grow if you water it with the feminine, so those kind of, I can hear when you obviously life felt kind of unrooted and really unsettling. It was like, you'll do anything for safety, and if that meant more of your masculine to kind of feel and protect your children, that's what you had needed to do at that time. And I think, building on what kind of Liz says, we can get so caught up in that. And even if someone is listening to this and going through it, even if you can get those micro moments, because that self-compassion is not about, being, giving ourselves a tap on the back, or it's really going, I feel really crap right now. I feel really scared, and being able to lean into that emotion and go, do you know what? I'd be able to hold this a bit more, even if I just allow myself 5 minutes when the kids are in bed to allow myself to drink a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Whatever it doesn't need, but still allowing ourselves to trust ourselves enough that we can still check in on us while we're trying to protect our children and keep a roof over their head, or clothes on the back and food on the table. Because, keeping that rapport with ourselves, and it will always come from our emotions. What is it that my emotions are telling me that's really I need to prioritize for myself, so that I can meet everything out here with much more resourcefulness and much more resilience, because obviously life isn't black and white, and tricky things happen, and in those tricky times it's much more easier to neglect ourselves.
Yeah, it's funny because I did a will of sort of like self-regulation for children, for parents to help with their children. And I've got one for myself. So what I do is, when I get into that, I was going to say manic, but it's not manic. But when I'm feeling overwhelmed and, you know, I haven't got anybody to talk to here about it, and I can feel it boiling up to a point where nothing productive is going to come out, I pause, and it's just like, right, what do I need right now? And I think about, do I need more knowledge? Do I need more research? Do I need to have a conversation with someone? Do I need to go out in nature? Do I need to, a hug would be nice, but I'm not going to go out and hug some complete stranger.
Why not?
No, you don't do that here. But those sorts of things. So it's about taking that pause, and I have it written down on like a wheel. Do I need to read a book or listen to some music? Do I need to dance? What have you? And it just helps me focus and go, okay, here are my options. There's lots of options here. So that's something I do. What do you do, Liz? Do you do anything like that?
I love this part of the conversation because it brings it back to awareness and acceptance. And it's about being aware of where you are in the moment. And when I get in that same mode where I'm just feeling like everything is chaos and I'm feeling unsettled and overwhelmed, I too have to just stop, and I have to become aware of what's going on around me. And then I have to write it down, because there's something about it being in my head where it grows legs and becomes this giant purple people eater versus something that I can look at objectively when it's on paper. And I ask myself those questions, and I just accept that, okay, this is where it is. How do I move forward? Not, oh my God, this is where it is. And how did I get here? And that you can deal with down the road, but it's not going to help get you out of it in the moment. And I think being aware and being able to identify those needs is super important. And earlier when we were talking and you said that you were under the impression that you were showing up all the time in your masculine, but then you realized that no, you do show up in your feminine as well. I think it comes down to intention and being aware of how we're showing up and intentionally taking a micro moment to be in our feminine, to ask ourselves those questions, to, allow yourself to cry if you need to, or jump up and down and dance, something to move the energy around, and intentionally being in your masculine when you need it. So having that awareness is huge to creating that balance, because we do these things naturally. So it doesn't feel like we're doing them at all. But if we're in our awareness and we're paying attention, we can be more intentional about it.
And I think when those things arise as well, when you're in that fearful state, overwhelmed state, to take that pause and go, right, hold on a second, let's take emotions out of this. What are the facts? What do you need to do? So really go into your third person and, right, this isn't about you. Stop taking it personally. Look at the facts and break it down. What do you need to do? What must be done? And let's concentrate on that. Everything else we can do.
Yeah.
Later.
It doesn't matter if it was your fault. If you did something that, maybe you knew you shouldn't have done, or maybe you did something in a way that it caused a ripple effect, it doesn't matter. You can't, as I like to say, you can't put toothpaste back in a tube, right? It is where it is in this moment. Where are you in this moment? And what do you want to do about it? Is it great? Do you want to keep going the way you're going? Awesome. Make that choice. Do you choose to change it? Awesome. Let's figure out what the options are. And I love that you have that wheel.
It.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
No, yeah, exactly. It's owning it and accepting. It doesn't mean that you agree with it or you like it. It just is, until you know that where is what's happening in the present moment. You can't really make the changes, because then you're not making it from the right place. You're making it from the fantasy you. right? So.
And just to echo that as well, I think that self-awareness, look, you're talking about, we can go into storyland. That's why I say to my husband, you're in storyland again, you're in storyland. Because we just want to kind of predict, and this could happen, it's the worst case scenario. And just come back, like Donna said, what is fact? Kind of just get rid of the fog and just like streamline it and go, what is fact right now? And sometimes before we get to that stage, you might find your nervous system is like completely dysregulated because things are kind of just like built up. And that might mean, sometimes just you take, like, give yourself even a little hug, just that touch brings your nervous system back down to kind of regulation. So then that you can come back, okay, what's fact now? Or even asking yourself a question, which I like, what would I say to my best friend right now? Or someone I really cared about right now? And kind of asking myself from like a third person that offers me a different perspective. So, it's that self-awareness, I believe self-connection is based on 3 things in research, which is like self-awareness, we can't change unless we know what's going on. Self-acceptance, going, okay, this is what's happening for me right now, and how we respond to that. And then aligning our actions with what was really important, that aligns to our values, so that we kind of move forward with integrity, self-compassion, and everything else in between that's important to us. As long as it honors our values, it'll always feel okay.
Yeah, that's it. I'm such a big believer about owning up to things. And I nearly swore then, if you mess up, masculine side coming out.
Your inner truck driver is coming out.
My inner truck driver. Thanks. So if you mess up, own it. Go and apologize. Get that over. Me, if I find out I've hurt somebody's feelings and I'm clueless about it, and then I find out from the third person, it kills me. It eats me up, because that was not my intention at all. And and I go and apologize. If I've walked away from something, or I know I've said something and I've sensed the shift in energy or their facial expression or something, I'll apologize right there and then. I'm sorry, have I said something? What have I, how can I help? I think that is a big thing when you are feeling overwhelmed, is not to take it out on other people, to own what you're doing, where you are right now, and apologize if you do hurt other people's feelings in the process.
I think that's where it's so important to grab a piece of paper and write down everything that you're feeling, everything that you're struggling with in the moment, because it somehow stops the cycle of that our brains want to do, which is we mull it over and it changes and morphs and grows and expands and contracts. And when you put it on paper, it's so much easier to step back and look at it objectively. And from there you can act, because maybe you did say something or do something that you didn't intend, the consequences of what happened, right? But there too is, that's our responsibility as humans and as people to stand up and say, right, Donna, like I heard what you said, but I have to tell you that hurt, right, when you said it, because we cannot assume that people can read minds, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody thinks like us. And I think that's where the awakening is starting to happen, that as a global culture, we are coming to understand, at least I'm hoping that that's where we're going, that while we might have a lot of similarities, we're completely different, and we're all living our own experience here, even if we're in the same family. My brother and I have the same parents and the same relatives, and we grew up in 2 completely different families.
Yeah.
So I cannot assume that his experience was mine, because it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's a theme that I feel is coming up. Like how we, as humans, I don't think we've always been brought up to be explicit and really share and be congruent and go, you know, this is my experiencing in this moment. Maybe what you said really hurt me. So then when there is a rupture in any kind of relation, there's an opportunity for a repair. And I think a lot of people, we grow up and never seeing rupture and repair. It's not role modeled or not honoured to go, okay, how are you experiencing that? And especially when you're young and you're always given, well, this is, you know, well, look at it this way, or look at it this perspective, and not really just stepping back and going, okay, let me just check in. How was that for you? What was that feeling? So we're not assuming someone else's experience. So if a rupture has occurred in a relationship, then then it's two people that have an opportunity to kind of repair and go, hey, we're imperfect. We're all experiencing things differently. And this is how we really connect as human beings. And through that vulnerability, we grow greater connections. We keep in our hearts. And then, you know, nothing kind of snowballs. And we can accept that actually, oh God, I've said something wrong there. And I know how to repair. And this, I think that is still very, something that still needs a lot of work, in my own opinion, still needs a lot of work in, you know, especially, I would say I could speak for the Western world, I think in our culture, especially. But, you know, I'm sure we're moving towards there, but it's still not there yet.
Oh, you have such a beautiful way of saying things, Kelly. I love it.
The accents, but it's true. She has got great things to say. I just like to listen to you all day, Kelly.
The Welsh can sing it. The Welsh part.
But I mean, we're going to have to wrap it up soon.
Yeah.
But one of the big things I think is so important is for us to learn how to have disagreements and how to argue effectively. So, you know, like before you get married or when you start having a relationship, it's just like, okay, hold on a second. We're in a good place right now, you know. So let's have this discussion. When we are stressed or overwhelmed or in a bad place, how do we argue? What are things that we do not, you know, say to each other? I think one of the worst things that a man can say to a woman is, I know how you're feeling, or you shouldn't feel like that. Don't tell me how I should or shouldn't feel. Or, you know, is it that time of the month? I mean, you know, 3 things don't say to a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, so funny. It's just so funny. What were you going to say, Liz? I can see you going to say.
Sorry. No. I think what came up as you were talking too was our responsibility as our individual selves is to teach others how to relate with us, because you cannot assume, like, it's not just, you were talking about couples and you know, it's not just for intimacy, right? To teach somebody how to you know, what works for you and what doesn't, you have to do that in the dining room too, right? So, you know, like how to relate to me. And this is what I experienced. I had a friend who literally, if you did something that didn't work for her, she cut you off. No words, never told you what you did. So how could you ever change? My brother, as a parent, used to take blocks away from his child when she was like 18 months, under 2 years. If she was making too much noise, he would just scoop it up without a word, without trying to make her understand what she did wrong. So she could never change. And that creates a lot of stress and anxiety, because you never know what's going to come down, what you're going to do, because nobody ever takes the time to say, you know what, I love you, or you're a close friend, or you're a good person. You said it this way. I really would have, you know, perhaps I would have heard it differently if you said it this way. Or, you know, when you tell me showed me what I did wrong, then I can change. I'm happy to change. It changes the dynamic in that relationship, I think, and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. We lost you a little bit there, Liz, but we got the gist of
Oh,
it.
I'm
You
sorry.
started to pause and stuff. No, is it the rain in Vermont again?
Welcome to the woods.
Oh, dear. Well, look, on that note, we're going to wrap it up. But guys, you have given some really great and shared some great experiences and tips. But before we go, I'd love to have one more tip from you both about sort of like balancing your masculine and feminine.
Okay. I can go first if you want, Liz.
Please.
So what I would say, like, you can access a lot of the list of like what's feminine and masculine. So what I would say to somebody, really build that self-awareness. So check in, where am I kind of leaning more into? Am I accessing more my masculine, or am I accessing more my feminine right now? And start with one thing. So for example, if you're kind of more in your kind of masculine and you're just doing, racing around, getting things done, building stuff, creating stuff, moving forward, then go, okay, what's one thing I can do that allows me to use more my feminine? So that may be, do you know what? Once a week, I'm going for a hike. Once a week, I'm going into nature. That could be once a week. I'm just going to be spontaneous with no end result and just do something I want to do. Just kind of focus on one thing that's going to lean you back in to start shifting that balance, and then just checking how that makes you feel, and just see, and just kind of always keep self-reflecting how that shapes for you, how that is for you, what's the value of it. So you start seeing the value in the being, not just the doing.
I love that. And I would second and third all of that. I think that when you do find yourself in one than the other, it is about the awareness. It's about taking that pause and asking yourself, what do I need in the moment? That phrase, put your own oxygen mask on first before helping another, I think is very appropriate here. And just taking the time, at least a couple of times a day, whenever you think about it. Maybe you tie it to, getting another cup of coffee, or every time you wash your hands, just take that moment and ask yourself, how am I doing? What do I need right now? And it's not about, oh, what do I need to move forward? It's about, what do my person, need right now to really be in the moment and feel fulfilled.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah, I would third everything that you guys have said, but also I would just suggest that don't look at it always as masculine and feminine. These are both strengths, and it is, what do I need to tap in right now? Do I need to tap into more compassion, use my intuition, use that softer, compassionate side, or do I need to actually get off my ass and get going and make a decision and move forward? So it's about what strength do I need to flex today or right at this moment?
It's like having a tool bag, reaching in, what do I need to pull out?
Yeah, exactly. And if you find Mr. Marlboro Man, give me a call. No, I'm joking.
I don't know. Maybe I won't give you his number. I might reserve that for me.
After seeing the Marlboro Man, I remember the Village People coming out, and I fell in love with the cowboy from the Village People because he reminded. How wrong was I know you. I just can't pick the right man.
Oh, goodness me.
Oh dear.
So funny.
On that note, we'll carry on the conversation in a minute. I've got something to tell you. Again, I would like to thank you both very much for being on today, and I know we will all catch up again soon. And on that note, guys, I will bid you all a very good evening.